Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again. Tomorrow it's Friday, Parashat Balak. This week's portion is so connected to current events. I mean, think about here an attempted assassination against the people of Israel. So the concept of assassination is on our news channels with the crazy thing this week when someone tried to murder Donald Trump. Unbelievable tragedy. I mean, there's such evil out there in the world. But let's get down to our portion. It's all connected to the world events and what's happening. And I just want to say is that this week's portion is all about seeing and viewing things properly. If we look, and there are repetitions of words in the Torah many times, and we know that it always comes to teach us something special. In our portion particularly, there's a repetition of the different forms of the word to see. It even opens up with Vayal Balak, and Balak sees. In other words, he's contemplating about what's happening, about the two kings of Sichon and Og, that Israel was victorious, and now he wants to know what to do. So he goes ahead and hires this murderous prophet of the nations who just wants to, he cares about his own personal needs, but he has an ability of connecting to the upper worlds. God gave him that ability just to teach a lesson to the world, and we'll learn about in this week's portion why. And I'd like to show one particular prophecy. We know that our rabbis tell us is that more than any prophet, there's so many prophecies in this week's portion about Mashiach, Messiah, at the end of days, through Bilam, right? This evil man. And there's a reason for it. The reason is because this week's portion really shows, make the right choice. Either choose your loyalty to God and Israel, or choose your death. When those who pull away from Israel and pull away from God, eventually they're going to be destroyed. I mean, literally they are connecting to the dark side, and they will self-destruct and bring themselves down. That's what's really the choice that people have in this world. And we see that this is what Bilam is saying in his prophecies. And I want to show you a particular one that really teaches this, which is very cryptic words of Bilam. Let me here open up the portion. If we look, and I'll read this particular verse directly. So if we look in chapter 24, it says, Vayomar, verse number 21, Reshit Goyim Amalek, Vachrito Ade Oved. It talks about Amalek being Reshit, the first nation, Amalek. What does it mean, the Reshit Goyim Amalek? And in other words, he's a choice nation of the world. The fact that his ability of tremendous power and abilities he has, but of course Amalek, his whole purpose was to wipe out Israel. What happens at the end? V'acharito adei oved, he will be lost forever. So with all his abilities and everything they did, look at the Nazi war machine that they tried to wipe out Israel, but Hitler, Yimach Shemo, is gone with all his war machine. They were destroyed. No one will succeed in the final solution against Israel. And that's really the first verse here in 21. And then right after that it says, this is a verse I want to focus on, Vayar et ha-keni vayisa mishalo vayomar. Then he looks at the keni, and he says, Eitan moshavecha v'sim basela kinecha. What does it mean? Who are the keni over here? The keni basically referred to, this takes us back, way back basically in the Torah, because if we look in Genesis, Parashat Lech Lecha, right? In the Brit Ben Abtarim, in the covenant of the halves, when God says to Abraham, he says, Et ha-keni, when he talks about the land, I'll read a few of the verses, he says like this, Bayom hu karat Hashem et Avram Brit, God made a covenant to Abraham at that time, and he says to them, to your children I will give you this land from the river of Egypt until the Euphrates. And then he talks about the nations, and he mentions part of the nations, et ha-keni, et ha-knizi, et ha-kadmoni. He starts mentioning some of these nations, and he goes on with a list of 10 nations. Now, so one of these nations really were the Keni, there were a nation over there. Okay? And Rashi says on the Makom, Rashi says there were 10 nations. Velonatam lem ela shiva goyim. Right? But we know at that time, when Israel came under Joshua, they were given 7 out of the 10. And the other 3 left were the Edomites and the Moabites and the Ammonites, which are the Keni, Knizi, the Kadmoni. Rashi says that will be the end of days. the final battles at the end of days will be basically those nations will have given into Israel, and mentions the Keni over there. Okay, so that's one source referring to the Keni as well. But now a portion, I'd like to continue with this really, but if we look in the book of Judges, okay, chapter 1, verse number 16, what does it say? It says, Zubnei Keni choten Moshe, alu me'irat Tamarim. It says the children, the sons of Keni, the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu, came to the city of Tamarim. Alu Meir, they left the city of Tamarim, which was the city of Jericho. Et Bnei Yehuda midbar Yehuda, they came to the desert in Judean desert, in the Negev, in the south of Israel. And what is this basically saying here? Is that Jethro, Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu, they inherited, and Rashi explains, is that they inherited the city of Jericho because it was very, very beautiful, the palm trees and the date palms and all that, until the temple will be built. Because when the temple was built in Jerusalem, so those who inherited, those whose area, which was Benjamin, which was built in their portion in Judah, so basically they were able to be, to pay back, pay them back, compensate them by giving them another portion, and they were given a portion of Jericho. At the same time, so in the meantime, for 440 years, they were allowed to dwell within the borders of Jericho, that city, which was the children of Jethro, Yitro, who of course became part of the house of Israel, right? And they decided to leave Jericho, some of them, and go study Torah with Yavetz, which was Otniel ben Kenaz. Otniel ben Kenaz, he was given the daughter of Caleb. Caleb gave him his daughter in matrimony. It was right, Achsa, because he was a great scholar, a great rabbi, a great Torah scholar, a warrior, as we all know, Otniel ben Kenaz. And he was Yavetz, and he studied Torah, and he was teaching all the progeny of Yitro in the Judean desert. Okay, so that's a little mention there. It's mentioned in other parts as well, as we look in the book of the book of Samuel. So Shmuel Hanavi goes out and he tells the Keni to move away because they are connected to Amalek. Like in this week's, the verse I just read to you in our portion, Amalek, and then it talks about the Keni, they're connected here as well, and therefore that's the connection, that they were dwelling amongst Amalek, and they said, I want you to get out of there because we don't want you to get hurt when we wipe out Amalek. Okay, so that's another mention of the Keni in the Torah. Now, what is this all about? Let's get out to a portion. So here, in this particular verse, Bilam is prophesying over the Keni, and he's saying to them, Eitan moshavecha v'sim baseh lekinecha, your dwelling is strong, and place a nest in the rocks. Now, what does that mean? And Rashi says like this. Rashi says, Tameani. Bilam was totally in awe. Why was he so bewildered for? Meichan zachita lechach. Why did you merit in all this? Halo ata imi hayita ba'atzat hava nitchakma lo. V'ata nityashavta beitanu ma'oz shel Yisrael. Because you were part of this eitzah, part of the council to try to wipe out. When the Egyptian leader, the Paro, he had 3 advisors. One was Yitro, one was Bilam, and one was Iyov. And you were one of the advisors. So what happened? How are you all of a sudden, your progeny is looking in the future? It's a prophecy, and he's seeing how they're all sitting in tranquility, that they're nesting in the rocks. What do you mean nesting in the rocks? And basically the meaning here is becoming clear to you, right? The fact that they're nesting in the rocks, Israel is like the rock of salvation, right? God is our salvation, Israel is God's people. So when the fact they cleave to Israel, the progeny of Yitro, as we all know, Yitro was the first convert, one of the first converts. So by cleaving to Israel, and his progeny is continuing to cleave to Israel, that brought them that great blessing. We see they're studying Torah in the Judean desert. So, but Bilam is bewildered about this. What's going on? You were part of, you just like me, you were one of the bad guys. And now we're seeing the great blessing of Jethro. So here, this fascinating prophecy says it all. And it continues, it says, Ki im yeh leva'er kayin. In other words, Rashi explains, Ashrecha shenitkata letokef zeh. She'eincha nitrad od min olam. Rashi says, it should happy to you. Ki af im ata atid leglot מעשרת השבטים ותהיה לבאר ממקום שנתיישבת שם, מה בכך? עד מה אשר תשבקה? עד היכן הוא מגלה אותך? שמה לחלך וחבור. שמה לחלך וחבור, אין זה תירוד מן העולם, אלא תלתו ממקום למקום ותשוב עם שאר הגלויות. So Rashi says, what can happen? Worst comes to worst. You'll be exiled for a period of time with the 10 tribes and you'll come back. In other words, we see here something fascinating is that they chose, the seed of Jethro, Yitro, chose to cleave to Israel. And here, at the end of the days, of all the prophecies of Messiah to the end of the days, he chose to mention this Bilyam, right? We know that he's revealing so many secrets of the end of days, and he's saying, wow, you were part of the bad guys, and all of a sudden look what happened, now you're so blessed, you are cleaving to Israel. Now, why am I mentioning this prophecy out of all the different ones we could have spoke about today? And that's exactly what's happening in the world today. We see it happen, and we see it happening before our eyes. There are those that are standing with Israel with such loyalty and love and not budging one millimeter. And that loyalty to Israel will only bring them that blessing. And that's exactly what this teaching is all about, this prophetic word here at the end of days. And Bilam himself, he's like a mouthpiece. God is just letting the words come out. He doesn't understand it himself. He doesn't understand what's happening. But he's so connected to evil and distorted. But he can't control the fact that he's revealing this truth at the end of days. And as it says, the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, will say, Amen, at the end. There's no control over it. And he's saying that Israel is blessed and that those who cleave to Israel will be blessed. And this is really the prophecy at the end of days. What's happening, we see. And I'm saying right out, if we see in the world all these countries that are lifting their heads up and they want to make sanctions against Israel, and they want to boycott us in The Hague, and they want to accuse Israel of war crimes and all these things. At the end of the day, it's going to all be the end that happened to Bilam. They're going to bring destruction upon themselves. They're going to bring tragedy upon themselves because they decided to choose, instead of life, to choose death. They chose the evil instead of good. Israel represents good in the world. Israel represents God in the world. And those who choose Israel will choose life. And the others will fall apart eventually. It's just black and white, but it's so hard. It's so hard for people who are far away and disconnected to see it. And they're trying to come up with all the, in the name of mercy and all these things, they're claiming all kinds of things, but they're just lies. They don't even care about the people. If anyone really cares about humanity and the love for people in the world, it's precisely those who sometimes have to stand up and fight back and against the enemy, but those who really are people of love and don't want to have to kill anybody or hurt anybody, but they're doing it because when there's no choice. The others who talk so big and all this, they're the real murderers and the ones who don't care in reality about life. And that's exactly, it's an obvious fact. There's also I want to see if I can find it quickly to actually mention this, really something very interesting. In this week's portion that sort of hints to that. And it talks about one of the places where when Bilyam was giving the prophecies, in the beginning he talks about, he took him to a place called Chutzot. In Hebrew, Chutzot means to go outside, right? Chutzot. And Rashi explains, what does it mean? What is the hint behind that word Chutzot? And Rashi explains something fascinating, is that they wanted to show and awaken the mercy of Balak, to awaken his mercy by taking him out to the markets and seeing how many people there are in the population and claiming Israel wants to wipe them out, which was such, again, a total lie. But it's exactly what goes on now. This whole thing was happening just to create this lie, to make Israel, to convince Israel, the true victim, that we're the aggressor. And it's exactly in this week's portion. That's why the fascinating. You got to look Rashi, and I'm not going to have time to go through all the sources, but I'm recommending you look at that Rashi. You'll see how Rashi explains. It refers to that tactic They want to take them out there in the markets and show how many people there are, and they're so poor because Israel wants to destroy them. If you don't curse Israel, they're going to be killed, which is such a lie. When did Israel threaten to kill, these nations? These people of the market. So it was just a lie, but they created it in order to, the bluff, to try to, again, come against Israel. I'd like to mention, just to end with one more source, and I'll talk about one other source. We see that a very unusual word when the donkey comes along and says to Balaam, he goes, why did you hit me 3 times? And in Hebrew, the word is regalim. Why did you hit me 3 times? And it's a very strange word to use, regalim, because regalim means literally a festival. So why do you hit me 3 festivals? But it can also mean it comes to the word, obviously, feet, legs. Because when a person goes to Jerusalem to participate in the mitzvah of the festival, he has to go by foot, right? When they're walking up to Har HaBayit, they have to walk on the Temple Mount and show their face. So right away Rashi brings down, he says something very interesting. Rashi says on that particular word usage, Rashi says he hinted that they want to uproot a nation that celebrates 3 festivals. But if you think about it, what is the connection? I had a very interesting insight on this. Is that it's exactly what I was talking about, that the word to see comes up many, many times in the portion. And the idea is when we come to the Temple Mount, we come to be seen by God, and we have to see God. What do you mean see God? Obviously no one can see God and live, as we all know. No one can. God is not physical, God forbid. That's idol worship to believe that God is physical. So it's something that we can't see with our physical way. The idea is to connect to God, right? So it's a form of seeing in a deep sense of connection, of prophetic connection. So we come to be seen, in other words, God connects to us when we're there, and we connect to God. It's our place we connect. So it connects so well with the whole concept of seeing in the portion. And that, our Temple Mount, coming to our holy place in the festivals, of course, is exactly what the nations know, and they want to come against us with their lies, and they want to sever our connection to the source of life, which is our Temple Mount and our temple. Because the whole way for a person in this world to see properly is only that connection to God. Only when you're connected to God, you have the proper vision. Otherwise, people could lose the proper guidance, the direction, and they can get very easily off balance. The only way to maintain that balance is being connected to God, when you're directly connected to the source of light. That's what a blessing is all about, to be connected to the source of light. And through our temple, our connection to the temple, we reach the highest level. That's why when the temple stood, the entire world is blessed by the divine presence residing within Israel. The whole world, the blessing went out to the whole world. And that's how the world has to view the truth. They have to want to build our temple. They have to want that to happen for the benefit of all mankind. And that's exactly this whole concept, again, which I showed how those who cleave to Israel will be blessed, and they'll put their faith in the rock of the creator of the universe, and Israel, the nation. That's where they should make their nest. And those who make their nest, that blessing will come upon them. At the end of days, they will be blessed. And that's what we see happening today again in the world. The world is taking sides. Those who stand with Israel and take sides with Israel and show their loyalty to Israel will be blessed forever. And that's the choice that the people have to make now. Who is with God and Israel? Come here, step on the side come to the side of the world. And that's really the battle we're in against evil, against the lie and the truth. And we will win. Truth will win. As it says, Israel's blessed, and nothing can change that fact. Nothing can change that fact. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom, B'sorot Tovot, Yeshuot v'Nechemot.